Hey, welcome back, everybody. Actually, not welcome back, but welcome to season 6 of the MindShare podcast. This show is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems, a 2-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals, as well as REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. Learn more about our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of our MindShare 101 goal setting worksheet, as well as learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 265. Consumers buy in emotionally, then justify their decisions logically. They can't tell you what they want, but they can tell you what they don't want, and more importantly, what they value. Using creative business strategies to turn their insights into traction for brands via compelling stories that surprise and delight is what he spends his days trying to achieve. He believes that the most effective and awe-inspiring work comes from simple ideas executed in simple but elegant ways. The process itself is anything but simple or elegant. Fortunately, he loves this sort of challenge. In fact, he lives for it. He's had the pleasure of struggling over simple and elegant solutions for clients like Carfax, Denny's, Delsey Luggage, Precision Tune Auto Care, and Music and Arts, to name a few, and has had the pleasure of being recognized more than 100 times for the effort, including one textbook mention, which he's particularly proud to call his own. He shares this great quote by Henry Ford: "If you asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." You can learn more by following him on TikTok and Instagram at BrandBossHQ. But for today, he's going to join me right here on this episode of Season 6 of the MindShare podcast to discuss how to build your brand in 2024. Please welcome Chief Creative Officer and CEO, the brand boss himself, Mr. Bill Harper. Bill?
Wow, that's
welcome.
it. That episode 265, Season 6 opener, perfectly executed. Another major market show, perfectly opened. Beautifully done.
My friend. And that's a wrap. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
That was like, there will never be another walk-up like that walk-up. That's it. You just ruined the bar for everybody that follows. That was wonderful. Hello, David. It's a pleasure to be on. Thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here, my friend. I am a follower. I watch, I follow, I chuckle, I learn. So it really is. It's an honor to have you here today. I thank you for making the time.
Well, thank you. Those last two are the ones that I think are most important. The learn plus chuckle, that edutainment combination, that's the hard part, right? It's easy to get one or the other. Mixing the two together is where the magic happens.
Well, and listen, you know what? I think that's a sense of, one, understanding your audience, understanding what resonates, and then, you know, obviously having some comfort for the delivery, but moreover, doing it and then doing it and then doing it again. And at that point, you start to find more of a rhythm as you keep going.
I think that the best presenters are the ones that know their material as well as they know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like if you gave an impromptu, if I said, David, go right now, make a presentation on a PB&J, you could do it. And it wouldn't matter if I suddenly got stuck on, well, let's talk about what knife you use. Okay, we riff on that for 5 minutes. Oh, well, it's important to understand, like, is it chunky? Is it smooth? Like you get on, and no one would ever throw you. I think the big benefit to seeing communication on any subject really well done is that they know it inside and out and backward and forward. And so it doesn't matter how you break them or what questions you ask or where you go, there's always a way to explain it in a simple way that they can then understand and utilize. And that's the real value, I think, at the end of the day.
I couldn't agree more. So I want to set the stage.
Yeah.
We are fortunate to have a variety of listeners that tune into this show. A lot of, our audience is primarily made up of salespeople, entrepreneurs, many who focus their days in the real estate industry. And typically speaking, most of these people are in charge of their own business as opposed to necessarily working for somebody else.
Sure.
Bottom line, they all want to attract new clients. And again, a lot of what you talk about is that brand, is what do people think about when they see your brand? How do you share the message about your brand? These people want more business overall. Now, I know who you are. And I'm hoping we're going to gain some more followers for you today off this show and throughout the next number of weeks as people tune into this show. But to help people become more familiar with you, beyond the bio that I just read off, can you share with us just more about who you are, what you do from a day to day? Just kind of let people know, like, I mean, once they hear from you, they're going to fully understand why you're here with me.
So the relevance to anybody who's listening that I will have is my businesses, and I've owned 5 advertising agencies, are all about scaling companies. I cut my teeth working at DMB&B's flagship office in St. Louis, where we had Anheuser-Busch and Blockbuster Music and Video. That's how old I am. And Enterprise Rent-A-Car and a host of
I asked my son the other day. My wife said Blockbuster. I looked at my son. He's 12. I'm like, you heard of Blockbuster? He's like, Dad, what's that?
So I cut my teeth working on those. But what I wound up falling in love with, while the budgets were fantastic and the prestige of working on those accounts was really amazing, I wanted to get my hands dirtier in helping those businesses figure out how to change their business models and how to make those companies accelerate. And so I found that the companies I became more interested in and more involved in as I progressed in my career became smaller and smaller until I was around 20, 40 people. And that really became a good sort of SEAL team that could dive in and really have a profound impact on a business. And I just fell madly in love with that. So we help companies. Typically the first 4 of the 5 companies that I had were in that $25 to $500 million zone, where everybody was trying to kick a decimal place around either they wanted to do an acquisition, or they wanted to be acquired themselves, or they wanted to get investor dollars in or investors back out again. They wanted to grow their brand. But what happened when I went on TikTok was really interesting, was that there was such a need, an instantaneous interest in, hey, how can we do that for a solopreneur? How can we do that for an emerging brand? How can we do that for a group that's hit $10 million and can't get past that? The Brand Boss really became all dedicated to helping those organizations figure out how to take some of the tools that those big successful groups had done and boil it off to something that they could do when they were just them, or where it was just a small team. And I've just fallen in love with that notion. And we've had the great pleasure of working with now over 60 companies in the last 10 months alone, just helping them to spool up what should we be talking about and how. So the relevance today is making sales easier, which is the job of the communication and the messaging and all the rest of it that I help put together on behalf of companies.
Very amazing. And thank you for sharing that. I think it sets a real good stage with people. Now, would you, just curious, and like this is totally off the side there,
Yeah.
does a lot of that new clientele come from the social media aspects, or is that more from the day-to-day of the networking of the people that you know?
I am a fan of the brand TikTok. If you had asked me a year and a half ago if you could do B2B sales on TikTok, I would have said no. And I owe it to a guy named Tom Lotriciano, who is on the floor in our office building, who challenged me and said, I think that you would be really good on TikTok. You should go. And I told him no. I told him no for months. And then I went on, and we had 7 figures of new business walk in the door in 6 months. And
just because you started putting videos out there?
Just through video. So
was there a CTA that you included in any of that stuff? Like specifically?
No, in fact,
I don't catch that from you.
I actually had a guy call me who his business was helping people figure out how to do stuff on TikTok. And he called me with his head in his hands, and he says, you don't do any of the things that we say to do. You don't use hooks. You don't script. You don't do anything. He said, what's your strategy? I said, my strategy is I look at it like the world is a cocktail party. If you go in and you start talking about yourself, no one's going to pay any attention to you, just like they wouldn't at a cocktail party. If instead you say, hey, I happen to know something about this particular subject, and if that is of interest to you, here's how I can make that usable for you, then you become interesting and relevant. Oddly enough, that's the exact same formula for brands. They just don't think about it that way.
Okay. So then I'm going to bring this one up. And I'm gonna talk about doing a magic trick.
Okay.
Haha. Oh, well, you recorded one recently that talked about the magic trick, right? And how do you show somebody your magic trick if they haven't seen it before?
Right.
Remember the one I'm talking about?
No. Oh, sorry. You threw me for a half a second. So the magic trick, the whole point of that conversation was most businesses try to sell something by telling how great it is, rather than by letting people experience it. And this is that piece. People buy emotionally and they justify logically. Not mine, by the way. I think it goes back to like Aristotle. So Peter Drucker gets a lot of credit for that phrase, but it's not his either. At any rate, this notion is that we all make decisions emotionally. The Harley Davidson goes down the street. I fall in love with the Harley Davidson. I say, oh man, I really want that. And then I tell myself a bunch of nonsense that justifies whether or not I think it's worth my doing it. And we make decisions that way on everything. The problem is that most businesses, most brands, whether it's a single operator or it's a business, and I see this up and down the food chain from billion-dollar companies down, skip over the fact that people are emotional and they try to go right to logic. And I said, that's like trying to sell a magic trick by saying how much everybody else appreciated it. That's like coming in and saying, I've got the best magic trick in the whole wide world. Everybody loves it. You should see it too. And they go, well, I'll decide if it's the best magic trick. Show it to me. And it's like, no. What you need to know about it is that it sold out Vegas. And that's how most companies are selling. They just don't realize that they're doing it. They're like, we have better people and we have better products and we have all this stuff. Well, that's after the fact. What are you doing that's making my situation better? And they skip right over that part. And they assume that because the magic trick is so great in how they've crafted it, and how they sell it, and how they support it, that it's somehow just going to exude what its value is to people. But we're simple creatures. We need to be told, hey, Volvo is for people who love safety. Get it? We're about safe. And they build that bridge, and over time and over time and over time, their reputation becomes that. If I said Eddie Murphy is blank, 99% of the world would say funny, because Eddie Murphy decided, I'm going to be the funniest man alive. I'm going to keep being funny in front of people until they get that I equal funny. If you want to, go laugh, you're not going to go see a Meryl Streep film. You're going to go see an Eddie Murphy film. And that's, well, anymore, but you get the gist.
I get it.
So
okay, sorry, keep going.
No. So that's the piece that I think everybody is really missing, is that they step right over the fact that we're all irrelevant. Nobody cares about my business. They only care about whether or not I can make something possible or make something go away on their behalf in their journey of progress. That's the only role that any of us play ever. So if you are willing to accept that that is true, it makes it a whole lot easier to understand why storytelling is so important and how you distinguish yourself in your marketplace.
You said Harley Davidson. I saw squirrels. I started going to left field there. But I'm back. No, when I watched the magic trick video and I listened to the analogy, and I kept sitting there like, where's he going? Where's he going? Not that I didn't think that there was an end game to it, just where's he going? The thought that came to my mind after that was, and I'm with you about the emotional thing, and I'm going to come back to that when we get into some AI conversation. But when I think about the magic trick, and I think to myself, okay, so features and benefits, is this something that I sit there and I talk about my features and benefits? And if I don't, what is the solution here to get people who are my, call it potential audience, the target audience, potential prospects there? What is it? How do I get them to understand that they want to see this magic trick? If I don't sit there going, hey, I've got a great magic trick. Hey, this is what I do. Hey, I sold out Vegas, etc. Which direction do I go? Is this about testimonials?
No. Let's drop down from theoretical into real. You talked about real estate agents. Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yep.
Most real estate agents are going to jump right to property. Okay, they're going to jump right to property, but they're missing the emotional step, right? Property is going to happen. That's not why people are choosing you as an agent. Instead, it's agents never show up on time, but my guy always shows up on time. So that agent represents the notion of, listen, no matter when I say that I will be there, I will always be there. I will always be there on time. You can count on that from me. Or I disagree with the fact that now that I can go on Zillow and I can find 15 properties I want to look at, I don't feel comfortable paying 6% commission. I would much rather pay 4%. Well, we're the agency that agrees to the 4%. You bring us the properties that you want, and rather than us showing you other properties, we're going to facilitate that and make sure that we're supporting all of the paperwork needs that you have to complete the deal. But we're not going to push other things for you, and that's what you're going to give up. You're going to trade. You do the research on the properties. We're going to drop the commission, but we'll still make sure that the transaction happens. Now, those are two different ways that you could do brand that are based entirely on the emotional experience of the consumer. The consumer says, what's important to me is not paying 6%. I don't want to pay a whole lot if I feel like I'm doing the work. As a real estate group, we understand that person exists and we exist for that person. So for the person for whom that is appropriate, they'll go to that. Okay, that's Southwest Airlines. You're not going to get a bunch of meal options. You're not going to get a bunch of frills. But if what you want to do is go from here to there and you want to do it for less, we're your group. And they have dominated that category because they've made that option. And that same opportunity exists in every single category on the planet, whether it is a single person selling themselves like a Tony Robbins, or it is a consumer packaged goods, or it's a real estate agent or a plumber or a durable goods or a service company. It doesn't matter. We make decisions the same way. When we realize that we can stand for one thing and that one thing is valued by a group of people, we become known for that one thing. And that one thing is what then allows them to opt in, because we're no longer just part of the commodity set.
Okay. So what we're trying to do here is figure out what is our big deliverable. Continue to deliver that.
What's the big pain point that you make go away? Brands only exist to either make something possible. I'm trying to get to a destination. I'm trying to grow my business. I'm trying to find a house. I'm trying to find a way not to tick off my boss anymore. Like, I'm trying to get there, but I can't do it. And there's a hurdle. And so you either make something possible that I didn't know how to do on my own, or you make a problem go away that I couldn't solve on my own. That's the only two ways that businesses are relevant. Products are relevant to each other. I don't feel pretty enough, but this jacket makes me feel really good looking, so I'm going to wear it, or whatever. It's the exact same. That same structure exists over and over and over again. So if I'm a real estate agent, I'm going to be saying, what do you hate about the real estate buying process? Oh man, I can't stand it when I say to my real estate agent, I want something that's, classic. And then they take me to something that's super modern. Like, that's a whole huge waste of my time. Well, if that was the pain point that you wanted to solve, then maybe on the front end, you say, listen, one of the things that's super important to me is that we not waste any of your time. I'm going to spend about an hour with you or a half hour with you, giving you vocabulary for what kind of homes you are interested in, so that I don't bring you something that you would feel is a waste of your time. People will go, oh my God, that was so amazing. They took the time to get to learn how I describe these homes and what it is. And it was such a great experience. Well, when they have that great experience, they're going to go tell 10 friends about it. And all of a sudden they're going to say, you got to go see Dave, the real estate guy, because when he sits down with you, it's amazing. He does this thing that nobody else ever does. He opens up this book and he says, tell me what you think this looks like. Oh, I call that Victorian. Oh, okay, great. Let me show you some other ones. Do you think that those are also Victorian? Yes. Is that the style you like? Yeah. Oh, I want big rooms. I want little rooms. I want this look. I want that look. Now that vocabulary makes that time together valuable to them, and they feel like they've been heard. And that's the emotional trigger that you're going for. Is the process in essence the same? Yeah, basically. But you're finding a pain point, then you're solving for it. And that's the emotional trigger that helps them get forward on the decision.
I like that. I was having a client, a coaching call this morning with one of my clients about content, video, what to come up with. And I think that pain points could be a lot of fun. They could also help describe the knowledge that you've got around what the process looks like, and reassure people that potentially you've actually got the solutions for those. Anyhow, I throw that out there for him to describe that a little bit further. Now, we talk about brand, Bill, and I actually going to go back to almost basics for a moment and say, why should we have a brand? Like, why should we be focused on building a brand? What's the reason for it? How would you define a brand? Moreover, is a brand just a set of colors and a logo?
No.
Thank you.
No. So a brand in its simplest form, a brand is your expectation about an experience, right? If I go to an Eddie Murphy movie, I'm going to laugh. If I go to a Meryl Streep movie, I'm going to cry, right? Like, these are in the simplest forms. That's what brand is. If I said, what's the James Bond brand? Physically fit, shaken, not stirred, mother country first, willing to do the right thing in every situation, and, gadgets, right? Like, that's the James Bond experience. If James Bond walked on set, 50 pounds overweight, balding, wearing a Hawaiian shirt and drinking something with an umbrella in it, nobody would believe that it was James Bond, because it's off brand. So the whole idea here is to establish a reputation for something, one thing. You can't do it for multiple, because people can't get that. So Bond's bigger idea is the perfect spy, right? Like, that's his whole thing, is like, if you were going to be a spy, you want to aspire to be that spy. And the way he does it, his brand experience, are those things that I just mentioned. So similarly, what is that one thing that you want people to consistently be able to say, now I came to you because I heard you don't waste time. That's correct. And here are the ways that I make sure that we don't waste time. Dink, dink, dink. And that's how you benefit from this idea of brand. Now, being able to identify yourself is brand identity. That's, I have a consistent logo. That is, I use a consistent set of colors. What's funny about brand identity is that it has a tendency to simplify over time. If you look at Nike's brand or Apple's brand over the course of a long period of time, you'll notice that it goes from complex. You watch, Starbucks is doing it now, and it's kind of fun to watch. Like the mermaid was super detailed black and white drawing. Then they got it in the circle, but it had like brown and green. Then they got rid of the brown, it was green. Then they got closer to the mermaid. Then they simplified. And sooner or later, it's going to be a green circle with like a white eyeball dot.
Yeah.
And everybody will know exactly what that is. So that notion that you have a mark, and that mark also is consistent, and that consistent mark represents the experience you're going to get. You know, a polygon or whatever that is with two hoops over the top of it has no relationship to this thing we call hamburgers. And yet everybody over the age of 2 knows what McDonald's is as a brand. And the reason is because if I go into the place that has the red polygon with the 2 hoops on top of it, I'm going to get the same exact experience every single time I go, no matter where I go. That's brand. That's consistency. That's a brand identity that represents an experience that is consistent. That in its simplest form is what you're trying to build. Now it can get all kinds of complicated past that, but in its simplest, most basic ABC blocks, that's what you're trying to get at.
Okay. I like that. Thank you. Now you had done, as we talk about getting our brand out there, and we've, you know, both of us do videos on social media. Here we are on a podcast. There's obviously other channels that we leverage. You had recently done a video on AIDA. And doing that as a, you know, and as a marketer, I got to tell you, I leverage AIDA all the time. I do that. We've got a training program that we do. AIDA is a big part of that, especially when I get into talking about online lead generation, because, you know, this has become this fad, this trend, this thing that, you know, dare I say in our world, well, not dare I say it all the time, but, you know, my audience, the real estate, the salespeople believe that that's like the golden goose right there is, let me get out there, let me run a few ads on social media, and I'm just going to have all of this business flowing in. And sure, there's an opportunity there where we're creating awareness. All that being said, there are other pieces to it that are real important. So I guess the question here is, you know, can you tell us more about it, a little bit more, you know, what you told people in the video, and more importantly, why does everybody need to understand the process, the acronym of AIDA when it comes to awareness, as opposed to just, because again, the way you described it, if I recall correctly, was, you know, you're almost going like, let me put something on social media, go straight to end game. And I think that there was a moment in time in our world when it became this big flashy kind of like, oh my God, and people would do it. But I also truly believe that our inboxes, our DM boxes, our social channels are overloaded with information. And that channel, this window right here of ours, this smartphone, has so much coming at me. I don't even know what to believe anymore.
Well, here's what I think everybody needs to realize. First off, this was a number of years ago, and I think it was almost 7 years as memory serves. 4.5 million pieces of new content at that time were created each day. And that was 7 years ago.
Oof, geez.
It doesn't matter how much of an advocate or like a crazed follower you are of any subject. There's no way in the world you could possibly keep up with all of that. And I think AI is the next wave of awful. Because what's happening is people are substituting the AI I believe in, which is actual intelligence, for artificial intelligence, because they believe that it's going to shortcut their workload. And it will, but here's the problem.
I like that, actual intelligence versus artificial intelligence.
I'm a big believer of AI. I just like the original one. You
don't mind if I use that?
Steal away. So the whole idea here is, when AI is doing the thinking for you, it doesn't benefit from your experience or insight or personality. And I get the virtually identical solution back that you do when you do your query. And so it's not really shortening anything for us because it's not doing us all any favors. Moreover, take a look at Take a look at digital and social efforts as they happen right now and the response people are really getting. And I mean anybody's. Go to any brand that you like, go to any competitor that you have, and go and look at their social channels. If they're getting 31 thumbs up, that's mom, dad, cousins, brothers, and sisters going, you're doing great. Like, that's not actual engagement. Forget about content in terms of the more content you put out, you've got to go from quantity to quality. If you're having an actual conversation, if you're actually sharing inside information, if you're actually explaining or educating something to somebody, especially on social media platforms, and especially done like this, not hyper produced. This is a real environment that I'm in with real not so great lighting. That's, real imperfect Bill Harper. It comes across as genuine, and it's because it is genuine. You're actually asking me, you're not asking an avatar, you're not asking some machine to do this. You will get greater traction going in and saying, hey, I just had and I'm just using the real estate thing because you brought it up, but
Yep.
I just had a client experience that was like this. That's just as hard on us as it is on you guys. Here's the thing that you can do to avoid that. Or when clients come to me, they tend not to really understand this, and this about the process, or they don't understand this and this about buying a home, or whatever insights that you have. Those are what's valuable. The things that you take for granted every day because you know that your subject so well, other people are like, oh my gosh, how do they know that? Like, we just assume everybody knows what we know because we know it and we're so comfortable with the information. Imagine Einstein felt that way about relativity, right? Like, well, I get it. It's like you're on a train and you're moving and the thing's moving, and that's relativity. Get it? Kinda, sorta, maybe, probably not. So like the whole idea here is to stick with authenticity and quality, not taking shortcuts. And believe me when I say, the more that your competitors take the shortcuts, the bigger the opportunity for you to stand apart by not taking it. So, I do constant riffs on the horrendous, lead gen emails that I get every day. In fact, I did one where I actually danced. My kids tease me about it all the time, to a Meghan Trainor song called, my answer is no, my name is no, my number is no, because they're so formulaic. Bill, I've been really impressed with what you've been doing here. We are a company that does. I mean, it's like over and over and over.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah, I know. And
we checked your website and.
Yeah, and I've had a team that's been putting together a thing. I'm like, no, you haven't.
No.
All of that stuff is AI generated, and it's just like the competitors. I mean, you can put your thumb over it. It's like, oh, this one's from who again? They're all exactly the same. Just don't fall into it. There's such a need and a request for authenticity. People are so screen saturated. They're like so averse to all of that. Be real. Be a human being. Talk about something. Make a mistake in the video. It's okay. No one cares.
Okay, so as we talk about AIDA, then from an awareness perspective, would you bring this back to have a content strategy? And in that content strategy, as you just said, quality, discuss people's pain points, discuss experiences, share your knowledge. This is where you're bringing awareness. This is what's going to create the interest and the desire, and then hopefully have people take action.
Yeah. So the idea for a content calendar, if you will, should really be based on what's that one thing that you're trying to do. So if I was Volvo and I was trying to do safety, I would be talking about innovation in safety. I would be talking about how comfort and safety can coexist. I would talk about anything that showed how well I understood that particular thing. And if I was doing real estate, or I was doing plumbing, or I was doing something else, it would be the exact same thing. Here's how well I understand this process. Here are things that you may not understand about the process. Here's pitfalls that people go through that I'd like you to help avoid. Here's how to avoid a bad outcome. Anything that you can share and give to people is going to be seen as valuable content, whether you choose to do that in a written word, or you choose to do it in video, or you choose to do it however you choose to do it. Any of those things is going to get you to a place where what you share is valued, and that's going to lead to leadership, and that's going to lead to followers, and that's going to lead to reputation, and that's going to build the brand, and blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so as we're doing that, then it's important that we understand, obviously, who our target audience is. I bring that up again, and I continue to use real estate as an example today because, it's easy to say. And I mean, I get questions all the time from people, should I take that person off my contact list? Or why should I talk to that person? I look at them, I say, hey, does that person have a roof over their head? They say, well, yeah. So would it piss you off if they went to work with somebody else? Well, yeah. Well, then you should probably talk to them. Now, all that said, what's your take on that? Because look, I will say this as well. depending on what country you're in the States, we're in Canada, we got like 40 million, you guys got like 400 million. But the reality is, even as like one individual realtor, or you might have a team or even a brokerage, the 40 million or the 400 million are not your target audience. That's way too big, way too many people.
Right.
Now we've got to break that down. So how would you, if I said, for a brief moment here, how could we help our audience more clearly define their target audience so they know who they want to target, who they should be talking to, what kind of stories they should be able to come up with, whose pain point they should be solving?
Okay, good. So number one, everybody has a thing they love to do. We refer to this as knowing the brand. Okay, so I really like helping people who have been slave to rentals forever buy their first house. That's what I'm all about. So my specialty is helping people figure out a way to get their finances in order and their credit scores in order and their bank relationships in order enough to make it to buy that first house. Okay, so that's a group, that's a target audience that you can pay attention to. I like people who are buying investment properties. And what I really love to do is help people know how to do that. That's another group, and so forth and so on. The thing that is the mistake people make all the time is they go, well, I do all that because I got the experience. It's not whether you have the experience. Of course you have the experience. That's not the question. The question is you can't be known for everything. That doesn't work. So instead, it's got to be, hey, I'm for the investor. I'm for the first-time buyer. I'm for the person who wants to retire and downsize. I'm all about, okay, I'm empty nest or I'm free bird or whatever, and I really need to like reduce my footprint because I'm moving into retirement and I don't need as big of a payment setup or whatever. Each one of those is a separate audience group that you can then specialize in. Now, with respect to geography, and you bring up a really good point, you're not for the 40 or 400 million. You're for the people that are within a 30 to 45 minute drive from your office. So from a geofencing standpoint, you don't have to worry if Bill in Raleigh, North Carolina wants to do retirees and Dave in Canada wants to do retirees, because we're not going to crash into each other.
Right.
And even if we're in neighboring areas, perhaps we do it differently or for different groups. Think about what happened after Geico came in and disrupted the insurance category. Allstate, Farmers Insurance, Progressive Insurance all came in. Now, there is zero distinction in insurance. You buy a thing that you never use until you have a crisis, you pay money into it, and you never think about it until you need it or you have to pay the bill. It's milk. It is as homogenous as it gets. It's the exact same. But each one of those brands took a slightly different tack on it. And in doing that, each one of them owned it a little differently. So Geico's "so easy a caveman can do it" was around simplicity, as their 15% or more in 15 minutes or less is all about your time is worth money. Progressive is all about flow and relatability. And hey, here's somebody who just can't help but being a complete and total nerd about insurance. She knows everything about it to the point where it's like ridiculous, but she's your knowledgeable resource in the event that you need one. Farmers knows a few things because they've seen a few things. Same thing, just a different tech. And then Mayhem, one of my favorites, he's the embodiment of our human ridiculousness. You know, my friend Becky just kissed my boyfriend, and I'm a 14-year-old who's now compromised behind the wheel, is one of my all-time favorite spots ever done. And it's just, here's what Mayhem looks like. All of them are selling the exact same thing, but the way they talked about it, the story they chose to tell is just different enough that they can own it, and it allows them to be unique in the category. Someone is going to like somebody who is super buttoned up and professional. Somebody else is going to want somebody who is very relaxed and easygoing. Those distinctions are a part of that brand experience that I'm talking about. So if you're showing up, you know, a little, you know, multi-personality, but, you know, you're in a suit and tie for one customer and then you're in a, you know, Led Zeppelin shirt for the next, you might want to rethink that experience a little bit, because that consistency is what ultimately people are going to tell other people about you. And that word of mouth, as in every other business, is critical. So hopefully that's a decent explanation of how those pieces fit together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's important that because again, in the real estate world specifically, if they've got a roof over their head, they could be a client. And yes, I might not turn down the person who's looking to downsize versus the brand new home buyer. However, through building my brand, from what I'm understanding here and from what I'd say I get from the background of marketing, pick something and start working towards that so that you can start to build out that niche, and that will begin to differentiate you from others who are just trying to be everything to everybody.
That's it. And, like, think about what CarMax did for cars, right? People hated going in and having the suit and tie with the cigarette come and like stand over them. Why are you here today? I'm going to buy a car, I think, and then the whole idea was like, look, anybody in a blue shirt and khaki pants can help you. Pick the closest one. Like,
Right.
it's not high pressure. Like, you're going to walk, you're going to say, oh, that one looks pretty. I'd like some information about it. You're not going to have a guy come out there and be like, listen, I got to talk to my manager. Why don't you cool your ears for 45 minutes while I go, do paddleball in the back. Like, it's not, it erased all of that. And a mass of humanity went, yes, please. We hated the fact that we didn't have a voice. We hated the fact. And that brings me up to another thing. If you don't like the word pain point, use the word enemy. You can't be the hero of the story unless you vanquish the enemy. No Darth Vader, no Luke Skywalker. He just stays a boring farmer. So the whole idea is like, look, what's the enemy that you are against? In the case of CarMax, it was people hate feeling like pressured. They don't like that. Oh, okay, no problem. If you look now, it's really interesting. CarMax has moved off of that because so many other dealerships have followed suit. And now we're all about no buyer's remorse. If within 7 days, I think it is, you don't like your car, you're able to bring it back. I'm not suggesting to any real estate agent that they can return their home if they're not pleased. That wasn't the point. The point of it is to say that they found an enemy and they said, look, what people are afraid of when buying a car is, what if I hate it? I think I want a Toyota. I think I do. And then I drove it and I was like, I'm stuck with this now for 60 months. I don't want that. In fact, I think I want something else. They've given a window to that. And so they've vanquished that foe. And thus CarMax becomes the hero. Similarly, for each of those examples that I gave earlier, you can choose an enemy and you can say, I hate it when this happens for you. So I made sure that it will never happen for anybody else, including you again. And that's how a brand gets a reputation for that one thing.
Great insights. Have you got any particular communication channels that you absolutely love or detest? And I say that in the sense where I believe there's 7 ways to communicate with people. And I say that for the entrepreneur, the salesperson. I leave the radio and television out of the mix because of a cost factor. I do break it down as in-person, phone calls, text messages, social media, email, direct mail, and your website. Is there any one of those that, do you believe in the old school? Does the direct mail still work in your mind? Does the social trump that? Is it, does it all work in tandem? What just your thoughts there, maybe high level around, channels. Should I be really isolated to one thing or should I be using a mix? What's your thought on that? And where have you seen successes?
Yeah. So ultimately, and I talk about this all the time. If I ask you, do you want to buy a Honda or a Vroom-Doo, you're going to buy a Honda. And the reason you're going to give me is because you've never heard of a Vroom-Doo.
Right.
That's awareness. Everybody wants, at the top of the sales funnel is awareness. People won't buy from something that they haven't heard from or heard from recently. They just don't. So that's why, Coca-Cola, who's a massive company, continues to spend 9% of top line revenue on marketing, because the minute that they stop, they become out of sight, out of mind, and they've figured that out. So I don't think it's a question of, is one of these bad or is one of them good? Each one of them in mix has a certain role up and down the funnel. What has become the soup du jour and sort of like everybody's digital obsession is, well, we just don't want to do bottom of the funnel because it's cheap and it's fast. I'm going to buy some SEO. I'm going to buy some keywords. I'm going to buy some Google stuff. And then when people do a search, well, I'm going to come up. No, you're not. Because everybody else is using the exact same stupid strategy. Along the same lines, if you really want to get my blood going, is banner ads. Whoever the banner ad people, do you hear 928 by 70? Please stop. Like, nobody. Do you know who clicks through a banner? Nobody. People make mistakes through a banner. The click-through rate on a banner ad is 1 in 1,000. Now, it doesn't take a Harvard MBA to see that when you can guarantee a 1.5 to 3% return on direct mail's a better investment. But along came ROAS. And if you want to talk about the digital dependency crack addiction that is, go no further than the I slept in the alley because I lost my home addiction to ROAS. I can track it. But if it's a piss poor performance, what good is tracking nothing? Like, okay, so you tracked it, big deal. So the answer to the question, in my opinion, is it depends on who you are as a person. I'm a character. I can get onto a video platform and I can speak and keep attention for a period of time. That is a skill set that I happen to have. Now, if you get on and you're reading from your car, video is not your game. So it's like, who are you as a person? What are you comfortable with? How do you like to do it? And then build your mix against that funnel. What pieces are you doing to generate awareness? Does anybody even know you're out there? Like, is it all word of mouth? Is it all keyword search? If you don't have that, you need to build some kind of awareness, and you need to make sure that there's a way to catch the awareness when it comes back in. So there's a lot there. I think it's a mix, and I think it's a mix based on who your target audience is, where they go to get their information, and who you are as a person or an entity representing your company, and what are you comfortable doing.
I like that. I like the answer, and I am in agreement with that. I do believe that there's got to be a mix there. It cannot be a one size fits all. It cannot be a one channel fits all. There's got to be a support mechanism for one channel to the next. And like you said a few moments ago there, a reason why we're implementing that channel for this specific direction.
Yeah.
Which would then lead me into, as we talk about social media, and we've talked about emotion, we've talked about pain points and the enemy. You just brought up video. If you're reading, you're uncomfortable, maybe video's not your thing. What would you say from a social media perspective is the best way to build our brand right now? And maybe we've really just shared that over the course of the past few minutes together here on the show.
I think it comes down to one thing and one thing only: give away everything. And this is why everybody, I don't support Gary Vaynerchuk's messaging a lot, but I got to give him props on this one. He was the first one to the party to say, share it all. And boy, was he right on that, because the more that you share, the more trustworthy you are perceived to be, because at some point somebody's going to go back and say, well, did he tell the whole story? Did they give away enough information that I could actually go do research and learn what it is that they're talking about? And if you have, and people see that you know what you're talking about, then it's not hidden behind buzzwords or processes or terms that are hot today but gone tomorrow, or BS promises that, overpromise and underdeliver. Like, you want to avoid all of that. So I think getting on and just being like, hey, I was thinking today, I had a conversation with somebody and I got this insight, and I'm sharing it because somebody out there is going to be doing it. Last night, I had a client reach out that was having a really bad day, and they were like, I just want to fire everybody and start all over again. And I did a quick video as I was on my way up to bed and basically said, look, this is for the CEO that's walking the floor tonight. If life is too short to suffer a bad agency or a bad in-house team. If you're not getting what you need, you're going to have to rip the Band-Aid and make the change. So just go ahead and do it. And I got a slew of people calling back being like, that was me. Like, thank you. I was standing there with pretzels in my hand as I read your TikTok. And yes, that was exactly the situation I was in. Any insight, anything that you can do to just connect as human being to human being is positive.
Okay, so we talk about, or I would ask the question around what's the best trigger. Again, we just talked about insight. It's talk about resonating with people. So I'm curious to know from your end, are you taking stories in the moment, and let's say you had this conversation with somebody last night, do you get off that phone and immediately record a video? Do you document it somewhere so you go back and record the video? How do you turn these experiences into content that's going to resonate with people, and then be consistent about that?
Yeah, to answer the first question, it's a combination of both. If I have the ability to just do it and turn and do it, I will, because it's fresh in my mind. And
what do you do? Just sorry, forgive me, I'm getting technical here. Do you literally open the video camera on your phone? Do you open up TikTok or Instagram, or is it just the video camera?
Pick it up and I just go, hey, TikTok, there we go.
But on the video camera, not on the social platform.
No, actually, I do it on the social platform.
Okay, cool.
But
do you go live?
I have done it both ways. I have. I don't know that. I mean, from a purely technical standpoint, it is better to record off platform and then distribute to platform so that you don't have to use like a scraper to get the TikTok insignia off
Right.
or logo
Yeah,
off
yeah,
and
yeah,
blah, blah,
yeah,
blah, blah,
yeah.
blah.
Yeah.
So that's just a practical matter.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think that there's any real significant difference in terms of how or where or when you do it. It's just when you're in a space where you can actually think the thought through. I also happen to believe that it's better to record organically a time or two until you feel like you've gotten your flow right. And I do that. Like I'll start and then I'll do something and I'll be like, okay, that was stupid. Like, redo. That's not how I wanted to say it. And record yourself 2 or 3 times until you get it where you go. Over scripting. I have never seen scripting work well. I mean, I see a lot of people do it and it's real obvious that they do it and how they do it. So I personally feel like real stories are better if you just kind of riff. And if you botch, then you botch. And I've done that a couple of times where I'll be like, all right, well, that sounded stupid. What I meant to say was, and I'll just keep going because that's what you would do in real conversation. And I think that that's part of the magic.
I got to double down on that. I mean, that's where a lot of things you're saying here today. I mean, and we had this question before we got on air here. You know, from even our brand, from MindShare, and a lot of folks that have been tuning in for a long time, which I love you guys. I thank you. It's been that. It's been I get off the phone with somebody, I'm like, well, there's a story. Let's put that out there. And you know that it's going to resonate with other people. You know that they're going to tune in and go, oh, I'd like to hear about that. And I can say straight up, and I've got zero fear in admitting, when I come up with a topic and I turn it into a video, it is not as compelling as if I just tell you a story about something that just happened or somehow parallel that for you. So you can almost be like, oh my God, I'm
Right.
in those shoes too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm with you there.
It is a shame that people respond to hooks the way that they do. I personally can't stand them because I don't like the formula of I'm going to give you a hook and then I'm going to drag you along a little bit. Like it just makes me feel oogie. So I don't.
And it's played out now.
Oh, well,
like we get it. We get it. I know.
I'm going to tell you about this pen, but first I'm going to tell you why it is that I like pens. I'm like, I give a shit. Like, just tell me about the damn pen. And you know, I don't get as many responses sometimes when I don't hook that way, but I don't feel scummy about it either.
I know.
So I
well,
sleep
here
better at night knowing I didn't do it.
and those are real stories with real thoughts, real emotion. And I said I'd bring this up, but I know it's been, and I love the actual intelligence versus artificial intelligence. I'm telling you, I'm stealing it. I will put your name on it.
At least give me credit for it.
Yeah. But let me come back to this for just a brief moment here. ChatGPT, yes or no? And just before you answer that, I want to share my opinion on that very quickly.
Yeah, please.
When this whole first thing came out, somebody introduced it to me at lunch, and they said, "Have you heard of it?" I said, "No. What is it?" He goes, "Watch this." And he goes in there and he says, "Write me a sales letter for MindShare 101." And then he shows me the phone and it starts typing. And I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. Like I could actually use that.
Right.
Then you start reading the verbiage. And it's not that it's bad, but it is so polished and it is not my voice. You're not going to get the me mixed into that. And I've had people come back to me before like, Dave, I read your emails. I can hear your voice. I'm like, that's what it's supposed to be.
Right.
Now, the other thing that gets me about ChatGPT is the whole plagiarism perspective, or I mean, maybe that's the darker way to say it, but that ability for people to go in and say, write me a letter or write me an article or content about, and then they go and they slap their name on it and put it out. Like we had a publication in our industry, no names, that actually were excited that they had contributors that had written their article through ChatGPT. And I'm like, they're contributing a robot's content, putting their name on it, and now you're giving them credit. I could go on.
There's a lot. There's so much to unpack in this. I think
this is like its own episode, right?
It's like I'm trying to be cautious about what worm I pull out of Pandora's box. So a couple of things. The reason that people love it, let's talk about the thing that no one wants to talk about. Why do people love it? And here's the answer, because it doesn't talk back and it doesn't roll its eyes. I want you to rewrite that and I want you to rewrite it this way. Yes, sir, no problem. I want you to do it this time. I just as a goof one day, I got on and I said, I want you to explain marketing and I want you to do it as Snoop Dogg. And I got one of the funniest things out of it like I'd ever.
That is funny.
And it's just, why not? Like, it was a lot of fun. I posted it on LinkedIn. It cracked me up. I thought I'd share. But anyway, so the real reason that people love it so much, okay, it's fast. Yeah, got that. But the simple truth of the matter is that as a boss to employees, and especially as everybody's been remote and you've lost some of that connection, it's fast, it's quick, and it never says no. It's never not available. It's never sick. It's never in the bathroom. It's never after hours. Like if I need to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can do it and it'll get it done. Mm-hmm. Where I think this is going to wind up actually being beneficial, at least the way that we use it in our industry, in our agency, is for comping ideas beyond having to do marker roughs. So it's like, okay, well, I have this idea of this Martian floating in a thing and there's coming out of a toaster, and something that you would have to have in the past sit down and actually have somebody marker render out. But instead, we use that mid-journey to be able to create enough of an idea to be able to show a client to say, this is what we want to go and shoot. This is what we want to go and create. And it gives them the ability to jump that bridge with us conceptually about where it is. I think that you can do similar things in terms of support. My kids actually came up with a really interesting use for it. When they are studying for a test, they'll put in all of the facts that they need to do, and then they'll ask it to create quiz or test questions for them that are different than the ones that they had been studying. And it's really interesting to see. I would never have thought about it that way, but that's how my kids have been using it to become a test prep. So I think that there's a lot of value for the platforms, the way that they work. It's simply a question of how do we want to use them? And unfortunately, like everything else, people wanted to go the lazy way out as fast as possible to start with, because they were like, oh, great, if this replaces 6 people, then I'm going to fire everybody. And there was actually someone that I knew that did that. They got rid of their entire internal department literally overnight and said, well, we'll just do it all with ChatGPT. And I'm like, you have no idea what you've just done to your company. And it never even occurred to them that that would be the case. So the fallout, I don't think, has really hit hard, unless you happen to be paying attention to the legal group that wound up getting in trouble for having the brief written by ChatGPT, or the rest of these massive litigation that's coming that direction. They just, people aren't really looking at what they don't want to see. They're looking at the part that they think is advantageous, and it's going to bite them.
Me? There we go. Sorry, it looked like it lagged for a moment on me there.
No worries.
Great feedback on that, and I would sort of expand on both thoughts there and say I think that it can help with some creative thinking. I think it can help you muddle some ideas around. I think it can help you get to that next stage that you want to get to. I'm just not a fan of people taking it, slapping their name on it, and putting it out there, and that's something I think everybody needs to caution about. And I come back to, and I love the fact that you brought up emotion earlier on. This is something I've been talking about. I go back to a keynote I think I delivered in New York back in like 2016 when we talked about the whole AI thing, and talked about the fact that people still operate off of emotion, and no matter how much this technology has, there's still going to be the lack thereof. And there's been a common theme to that part of the conversation, today's conversation, around the pain points, the trigger points, like what are people going to resonate with, right? And I think, I was going to ask you around like, why doesn't my branding seem like it's working? But I would say that part of that is maybe you haven't hit those trigger points with people, you haven't figured it out. So
if you use here the commodity, this is the commodity checklist. Write this down because it's good. If you hear this said in your hallways, you are a commodity product. We have better people, we have a better product, we work harder, we care more, we just need a few more sales. I cannot tell you how many CEOs during a presentation where I show that slide say stop, take out their phones, take a picture of it, and do like an all company message to everybody going, holy crap, that's us. And it's everywhere. Everybody thinks that their team is special that way. And if everybody thinks that their team is special that way and uses the same language, nobody's special. They're all the same.
You had a video that you had put out about James Bond, and you brought up James Bond earlier, and I was going to tie that together. And I know that the video itself, there was a main flow to that as well. The importance of consistency. And I want to almost get to the end of today's show with that. Talk to us about the importance of consistency, because I think that people miss that. I've long said that that consistency is the magic ingredient to achieving anything we want in life, and anything. There's people that have just started the brand new year that are looking to achieve their goals. You got to be consistent. I know, but it's hard. Yeah, but you have to be consistent. If you're not consistent about it, no matter how hard it is, don't expect to achieve.
Right.
And you had a great analogy there with James Bond. And I know you sort of touched on the James Bond thing earlier in today's episode, but I wanted to bring that back to, again, that video that you put out around consistency and James Bond, just to hit home on consistency.
Consistency, and I think you said it perfectly. Consistency is the key to all of it, because the thing we're trying to create is expectation. Expectation can only exist in the shadow of consistency. It's the only place that it consists. So, or it can live. So, you know, if I go to 31 flavors and I get mint chocolate chip, and every time I get it, it's different, then it's not mint chocolate chip. And so the mint chocolate chip brand falls apart. And that's what I was talking about with James Bond. They may change. There's been a bunch of hullabaloo about the new James Bond character. There have been questions about whether or not the next Bond is going to be female. There's a question about whether the next Bond is going to be black or white or Asian or whatever. Like, the questions abound on how this character is suddenly going to change from its classic historical white guy role.
Yep.
But the truth of the matter is that that's not what the Bond character is. You'll notice that when I made those brand experience points, in no way did I say male or female, short or tall. That wasn't the point. The point was the other things that are consistent: always physically fit, always comfortable and capable.
That's right. Yep.
All these things, like, those things are what make that experience. And if Gillian Anderson happens to be X-Files redhead, in case those of you who aren't X-Files fans have forgotten. If Gillian Anderson comes in as the next Bond, as long as she maintains that brand experience point, little aloof, little capable in any situation, little snarky, not reachable, but still got something that magnetically brings you to them. Like, as long as they're able to carry that character off and they don't change the mix of the values of the character, people will buy it and people will believe it, because it still represents the ideals of the concept. And that's where you get that momentum and the consistency. If you can't depend on what you're going to get, you don't have a brand. You just have an experience.
I like that. So the day's over for you, and you've done everything you had to do in a day. You've gone to work, you've helped people, you've changed some lives, you've come up with great ideas, put out some fantastic videos. Bill, how do you know it's been a successful day for you at the end of a day?
If I have managed to make it successful for somebody else. I am completely irrelevant. I talk about this all the time. I am completely irrelevant. And the faster that we all realize that we are only a tool to somebody else's success, the better. So if I've been able to do that at work and then gone home and helped with homework and then made sure the dinner was done and then made sure dishes were done, I can put my head down knowing that I was there to be the tool that needed to help make that whole set of organisms run the right way. That's truly how I look at it. And there was a lot of my life where that was not the case. So I really relish the fact that I've gotten to a place where I've realized that truth, because it gives us all purpose and direction. And I think that that's a good thing for all of us.
We're batting 1,000. I ask that question at the end of each episode. And I want to know what, because we have a lot of, like yourself, very successful people that join the show, and we're very grateful. And I thank you. It's important, though, to be able to share that with people. Nobody uses the word money ever. It's somehow it includes other people. It includes helping other people. So great answer, and very much in line. And again, to everybody tuned in, there you heard it once again. Mr. Harper, any final words of wisdoms that you want to just sort of leave off on that can help everybody get out there, build more mind share so they can get more market share? Tell them where they can find you. Any of that, just some final words here, my friend.
In the event somebody needs some support, brandbosshq.com is the place to find me. But more importantly, if you're struggling with this, go back to simplicity. What is it that you do against an enemy that benefits somebody else? If you have nothing else to work from, start there, and I promise you good things will come your way.
Very good, my friend. Brand Boss HQ. Follow him on TikTok. Follow him on Instagram. That's how I connected with him. And, I love my marketing. This man is right up on my alley. So, Bill, thank you. I'm very, very grateful you took the time to join us today. I look forward to further conversations with you, and I wish you nothing but an amazing day ahead and an amazing year ahead. Happy New Year.
Thank you. And to you as well. This pleasure was mine. Believe me, I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, pal. Thank you. Bye-bye. Wow, wicked episode. And well, you know, you are either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms. Maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. While you're there, be sure to download your free copy of the Mindshare 101 goal setting worksheet. All of it in place to help you conquer 2024 and become the version of you that you really want to be. A reminder as well that if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching, an in-person keynote talk for your upcoming event, and or ongoing virtual training, just get in touch with me, get in touch with my team. We'll set up a consultation call. We'll learn more about your looking to achieve and how we are going to help you do just that. For all inquiries, just get in touch with us today. Of course, please don't forget to leave a review of this show. It means a lot to us. If you can just go over to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. If you're on iOS, it'll help you get directly to iTunes, or you can just go straight to iTunes. If you're on Android, you can get over to Spotify. Of course, if you listen on any other podcast platform, please go ahead, rate the show. We'd be super grateful. And of course, connect with me if we haven't yet on social media, on Facebook at Mindshare 101, on TikTok at Mindshare 101, David Greenspan 101, on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. And before we take off, I just want to say a big thank you once again to Kits Keep in Touch Systems, as well as REM Magazine, for sponsoring this episode of the Mindshare podcast. Be sure to visit my site, mindshare101.com, to learn more about what these powerful companies will do to help you grow your business. This has been another episode of the Mindshare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.